Shame is not a simple emotion. It's a social execution. When someone attempts to shame you, they're not merely insulting you. They're trying to dismantle your identity in front of others. You felt it before. The flush creeping up your neck, the sudden silence, the crushing sense that the room has grown enormous and you shrunk. Your instinct screams at you to defend yourself, to justify your actions, or worse, to apologize. But the brutal reality is that any reaction is a surrender. The moment you defend, explain, or fight back, you've already accepted their narrative. You are dancing to their tune. Understanding why this happens requires a glimpse into human biology. The amygdala, the threat detector of your brain, misinterprets social humiliation as a danger to survival. In ancestral times, being shamed often led to social exile, which could mean death. Your body interprets the situation as life-threatening. Heart rate spikes, muscles tense, cortisol floods your system, and your mind panics. This is the very trap shaming relies on. A biological response designed for survival, now exploited in social arenas. The one who reacts first loses, while the shamer gains control simply by exploiting your instincts. But there's a way to break this automatic cycle. First, you must recognize that shame is always a projection. No one shames you without revealing something about themselves. A person who seeks to humiliate is insecure, threatened, or envious. A confident, fulfilled individual has no need to make others feel small. By shifting your perspective, you stop being a victim and become an observer. Observers are dangerous. They are unpredictable, calm, and untouchable. The first strategic step is to detach completely from the personal sting of the insult. Understand that the attack has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with the attacker's insecurities. When someone questions your appearance, intelligence, or credibility, they're exposing their fear of your potential or simply attempting to elevate themselves at your expense. Recognize this, and the heat on your neck begins to vanish. You no longer play the fool in their social theater. You become a silent force, unreactive yet dominant. This detachment requires deliberate mental rehearsal. Visualize a scenario in which someone launches an attack and you remain utterly unfazed. Imagine the silence stretching between the insult and your response. The room feels the tension, and the shamer grows increasingly uncomfortable. Their authority relies on your reaction. Depriving them of it is the first victory. You are not cold or cruel, you are strategic. You are reclaiming the energy they sought to drain. To consolidate this, you must internalize one crucial principle. The opposite of shame is not pride, but indifference. Pride still requires attention. It still seeks validation. Indifference is absolute. It freezes the room. It forces the attacker to confront their own awkwardness and exposes the hollowness of their attempts to dominate. Achieving this level of composure demands self-knowledge. You must understand your own strengths, weaknesses, and intrinsic value to a degree that renders external judgments inconsequential. Only then does the biological hijack of shame lose its power, leaving you free to engage the social arena on your own terms. Once you understand that shame is a weapon and not a verdict, the next step is learning to wield the power of indifference. Indifference is not apathy. It is the deliberate absence of reaction in a world designed to provoke one. When someone throws an insult or a judgment at you, there is a natural vacuum created, a gap in the conversation that feels dangerous, uncomfortable, and unnatural. Most people scramble to fill it. They laugh nervously, they explain, they justify, they apologize. They panic because silence feels like failure. But the master strategist sees this vacuum as a weapon, not a threat. The first rule of the void is simple: do nothing. Not the hesitant nothing of fear, but the precise nothing of choice. Stand still. Let your posture be neutral, your face calm. Do not blink excessively, do not frown or smile. Look directly at them, but with eyes that are flat, detached, and unbothered. You are no longer participating in their drama. You are observing it unfold. In those first critical seconds, the dynamic of the room begins to shift. The audience, whether in a meeting, a social gathering, or even online, anticipates a reaction. When none comes, all attention swings back to the instigator. They expected a performance from you and were met with a void. This silence is an active force. It forces the shamer to confront their own awkwardness, exposing their reliance on your emotional response to validate their dominance. They begin to stumble, hesitate, and question themselves. Did they even hear me? Do they not care? Are they untouchable? Every second you maintain composure strengthens your position. Their energy, once directed to destabilize you, is absorbed by the room and reflected back onto them. You have become a black hole, and the room's attention gravitates toward the void you create. Once you have held this silence, you can begin to employ subtle psychological maneuvers. The first is frame inversion. Instead of defending yourself, instead of reacting emotionally, you redirect the energy of the attack back onto the shamer. Consider it a type of social judo. The harder they push, the more their own imbalance becomes evident. If someone calls you incompetent, instead of arguing, you might tilt your head slightly, raise an eyebrow, and respond with mild curiosity. "Are you really sure about that?" Or, "Interesting observation, why do you say that?" You're no longer under scrutiny. You're analyzing them. They become the subject, and you, the calm evaluator. Another technique to amplify your dominance is the agree and amplify method. Sometimes the shamer has a point. Perhaps you did make a mistake. Rather than shrinking, you embrace it with audacity. You do not apologize or explain. You own it with confidence. If someone remarks that you are loud or unconventional, you can smile and say, "Absolutely, it's my strongest trait." By doing so, you disarm their attempt to shame you. Their attack loses all impact because they cannot fuel your reaction. This transforms shame into power. You are no longer a target. You are untouchable. The mastery of indifference is reinforced by your awareness of the audience. Remember, shaming is always a performance aimed at observers. People who attempt to humiliate you are rarely concerned with you. They are concerned with how others perceive their dominance. By remaining calm, detached, and composed, you signal to the audience that you are the authority in the room. The shamer appears reactive, desperate, and unstable. Your lack of reaction communicates control and leadership, forcing the audience to recalibrate their perceptions. Suddenly, their allegiance shifts, not because you sought approval, but because you radiate presence, stability, and strength. Indifference combined with strategic silence and frame inversion is a psychological arsenal. It allows you to neutralize attacks without aggression, to turn every attempt at humiliation into a moment that exposes the attacker, and to gradually train yourself to remain unshakable in any social arena. By mastering the void, you no longer chase validation or react to external provocations. Instead, you dictate the rhythm of interaction. You are no longer prey to their manipulations. You become the orchestrator of social energy. Once silence and indifference have destabilized the attacker, you reach the point where control shifts entirely into your hands. This is where most people make a mistake. They either stay silent for too long and appear passive, or they suddenly explode and give away all the power they just gained. The strategic approach lies in knowing when to speak and how little to say. Power in communication is not about volume or aggression. It is about precision. One sentence delivered at the right moment can do more damage than a long emotional argument ever could. At this stage, the goal is not to defend yourself, because defense implies that you accept the possibility of guilt. Instead, you reframe the interaction. You treat the insult not as a statement of truth, but as a behavior that needs to be examined. When someone tries to shame you, respond as if you are mildly puzzled by their emotional outburst. A slight pause, a calm expression, and a simple line like, "That was an odd thing to say out loud," immediately shifts the spotlight. The conversation is no longer about your alleged flaw. It becomes about their lack of self-control. Without raising your voice, you position yourself as the rational adult and push them into the role of the unstable child. Another powerful maneuver is forcing the attacker to clarify themselves. When an insult is vague or aggressive, ask them to repeat it or explain it. A calm, neutral response such as, "What exactly do you mean by that?" strips the insult of its momentum. Insults rely on speed, shock, and emotional charge. When you slow them down and ask for clarification, they lose their sting. The attacker now has to either soften their words or double down and look increasingly unreasonable in front of everyone else. Either outcome benefits you. There are moments when agreement becomes the sharpest weapon. This is counterintuitive, but devastating when done correctly. If the attacker points out a flaw you are already aware of, acknowledge it without shame. Agreeing calmly removes their leverage. When you show that you are not hiding from your imperfections, you become immune to manipulation. Shame only works when you resist it. The moment you accept yourself openly, the attack collapses. Confidence is not pretending to be perfect. It is being unbothered by imperfection. This is also where emotional restraint becomes crucial. Do not rush your responses. Let your body language do most of the work. Slow movements, relaxed posture, steady breathing. These signals communicate dominance far more effectively than clever words. People subconsciously follow those who appear grounded and unthreatened. While the attacker grows tense and reactive, you remain centered. The contrast alone shifts the hierarchy. By now, the attacker is likely confused. Their usual tactics are failing. They may escalate, become sarcastic, or try to provoke a stronger reaction. This is a sign of weakness, not strength. The more they push, the more control you gain by staying composed. You are no longer reacting to them. They are reacting to you. That reversal is the true objective. At this level, you are not trying to win an argument. You are establishing a frame in which you are untouchable. The attacker can only operate inside the emotional space you allow them. When you refuse to provide that space, they exhaust themselves. You conserve energy, maintain clarity, and quietly dominate the interaction without appearing aggressive or insecure. This is the art of psychological control, subtle, efficient, and deeply unsettling to anyone who tries to challenge you. At this stage, mastery is no longer just about surviving attacks, it is about shaping the social environment around you. The techniques of silence, frame inversion, and precise verbal strikes are powerful, but without an internal foundation, they remain superficial. True dominance comes from cultivating an unshakable inner fortress. This begins with complete self-acceptance. You must confront your past, your mistakes, your insecurities, and your vulnerabilities. Shine a light on every aspect of yourself that you have previously hidden in shame. Only when you accept these parts of yourself can you render external judgment powerless. The shamer can only harm what you fear being exposed. Remove that fear, and their weapon turns to dust. Building this internal fortress is not a one-time exercise. It requires deliberate, ongoing work. Reflect on the moments when you felt powerless. Revisit them without judgment. Recognize that these experiences shaped you, but do not define you. By taking ownership of your narrative, you reclaim authority of your identity. This is the essence of Machiavellian virtue, not morality, but strength, capability, and self-reliance. When you act from this space, the world cannot shame you because the foundation of your self-worth is internal, not external. Simultaneously, mastery of social dynamics requires awareness of the audience. Shame is never personal. It is a performance meant to manipulate observers. Your task is to influence the crowd without seeming overtly manipulative. Small gestures of fleeting smirk, a knowing glance to a third party, subtle body language communicate alignment with the group while isolating the attacker. The shamer's social power crumbles when they are cast as an outsider. People instinctively respect composure, control, and confidence. By projecting these qualities, you become the invisible anchor in any room, the standard by which others measure themselves. There are moments, however, when silence and subtlety are insufficient. Some attackers thrive on reaction and escalate relentlessly. Here, the nuclear option is required, active non-existence. Treat the instigator as if they do not exist. Do not glance, pause, or acknowledge them in any form. Speak to someone else or continue your activity as if a breeze merely passed. This is not emotional coldness. It is a deliberate denial of significance. Human psychology responds to this denial with confusion and panic. Attackers who rely on your reaction are forced into a state of desperation, revealing their instability to all observers. Finally, dominance is reinforced by knowing when to disengage. Once the interaction is complete, withdraw entirely. Do not linger to observe reactions or seek validation. The ultimate power is in demonstrating that the encounter was inconsequential to you. This teaches the crowd, silently, who holds control and leaves the attacker to wrestle with the fallout of their own behavior. When these techniques are combined, silence, frame inversion, strategic verbal strikes, internal fortress building, and audience manipulation, you are no longer a participant in social games. You are the arbiter of the room. You move through the world with a quiet, commanding presence. People feel it intuitively. You are stable where others are volatile, composed where others are reactive. You are no longer afraid of judgment, humiliation, or social exile. You have transformed shame into fuel, attacks into lessons, and conflict into leverage. This is the path to social sovereignty. It is not cruelty or arrogance. It is discipline, strategy, and self-mastery. You are the mountain to their ant, the calm to their storm, the observer that commands attention without ever demanding it. When you walk into a room, you no longer wonder if people like you. You wonder how they will respond to your presence. You have become the standard, the trap, the force that others unconsciously measure themselves against. And in that, there is absolute freedom.